What's up, guys? I'm here to talk about the race, and I did put out a prediction video yesterday, and I'm glad I did because the reason I felt I needed to do it, I didn't want to play Monday morning quarterback and just be like talking about, oh, I knew this was going to happen or that was going to happen. Anybody can do that. So I really felt strongly that this was going to be a good race, and I explained why in my prediction video that I did yesterday, and I think it's safe to say that I was right. I think most of what I said, it turned out to be exactly what I said. I talked about that these guys were not going to be able to run wide open lap after lap. You weren't going to see these guys in a pack or side by side, just one lap after the next. On the restarts, you saw that maybe for a lap or two, but the cars spread out. And at the end of the day, I said this was not going to be about the aero package. It was going to be about Atlanta and the track and tire wear and handling. That was going to be the main theme. That's why I put out the video as a prediction, so that people wouldn't come back later and say, you're just saying you knew this was going to happen. But I think it's important that people realize why this race turned out to be what it was. And that was my main point with the prediction video, that it was going to be about handling and tires. Now, if you don't want to take my word for it, right? Just keep in mind the broadcast. Excuse me. If you noticed, the first entire half of the race, you didn't hear these common phrases that we've become accustomed to that have to do with aerodynamics. They didn't talk much about the aero package. Remember, this is the first official race with this new aero package at a 1.5 mile track, which is what they kind of designed it for. They hardly talked about it for the first entire half of the race. Okay? You didn't hear aero push. You didn't hear side force, down force. Very rarely did they mention anything having to do with aerodynamics. Right? What does that tell you? It tells you that this race was shaping out to be more about handling and tire wear. And that's what I said in my prediction video. I said, you got to look at this. This entire thing is in a vacuum, right? So yes, you're running this aero package, but when you look at the race, in my opinion, it was a great race from beginning to end. You saw cars all over the track, at the bottom, at the top, in the middle, and you notice that cars weren't able to just run the same line over and over. The cars would get squirrely. Certain things happened where they had to change their line. That is the recipe for great racing. That's what I've been talking about. You got to focus on handling, making it all about handling and not about aerodynamics. Now, I'm going to be fair. Yes, this new aero package did play a part in this race. I'd be foolish to say it had nothing to do with it because it was part of the mix. But I also said yesterday that it was going to be a perfect storm. It was going to be a perfect storm of getting all of these things coming together to create the atmosphere for a great race. Tire wear, handling. Okay? This track is extremely weathered. I mean, visually you could see how old and crusty this track is. If you hit your line just maybe an inch or two off the wrong way, the car would get squirrely. You never saw anything resembling pack racing, right? So when the things that I've been afraid of, that I've been against when it comes to this aero package, are things like that fucking all-star race last year at Charlotte. I didn't want to see that. I don't want to see side-by-side pack racing lap after lap. That is not the ingredients for a great race. what you saw today was the ingredients for a great race. Handling and tire wear. And I thought it was a very entertaining race from the beginning to the end. Even in the beginning, the first two stages, you noticed that certain guys got out to the lead and they were able to hold it. But as the day went on and guys adjusted to the racetrack and made the right adjustments to the cars, you were able to see leaders fighting and being passed by other guys for the lead. Larson had probably one of the best cars, but it came down to making mistakes, right? A lot of guys made mistakes in the pits. A quick shout out to JTG Racing. They were very competitive today. Ryan Preece and Busher both running in the top 10 late in the race. It's a shame what happened to Preece in the pits. It's part of racing. These things happen, but I think what's important is just seeing another smaller owner being able to be more competitive, which is what I want to see. I'm sick and tired of these super mega teams dominating. So yeah, they're still going to be at the top, right? And they're still going to be the guys kind of competing for the wins. But still, you saw a lot of unexpected cars in the mix, which is also what I said might happen. So I do feel vindicated in a way. I did say this was going to be the type of race we were going to get. I thought it was awesome. I mean, what more can you ask for as a fan? These cars were running all over the track. There wasn't like a preferred line. They were everywhere. Okay? And you saw different people in the mix throughout the race. So I loved it. It was a fantastic race. The race turned out to be even better than what I thought it would be. And there was actually less pack style racing than I expected. I thought that for the first few laps on restarts after a fresh set of tires, you might see a little closer racing, but that never happened. This race actually looked like, I just had the feeling of an old school type of race from like the 90s. Not exactly, but it was really close to it. You know, just these long runs where tire wear just really, it was the story. And if you don't want to take my word for it, pay attention to the broadcast. As I said, they never mentioned Aerodynamics or this aero package till the middle of the race. And when they did start talking about it, it was really only because it is officially the first race with this new package. And it wasn't the race itself that made them talk about it. They just had to talk about it. At some point, they were prepared for it. You saw that graphic they put up on the screen where they showed you the pocket of air between last year and this year, and how this year there's a bigger hole punched in the air. So they were ready to present this stuff and talk about it, but they never really got that opportunity because the race wasn't about that. So at the halfway point of the race, they said, hey, you know, we got to talk about this at some point. Let's just insert it into the mix. And then they started talking a little bit of the aero package here and there, but you saw for yourself. This race was more about the racetrack and the tires and all that stuff. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the recipe for a great race. And I'm glad I put out that prediction video because I was right. And I also warned people. I hope, I don't see a lot of people, but I wouldn't be shocked if you get people out there raving about this aero package and it's not about the fucking aero package. That's not why this race was good. And I think it's important to realize why this race turned out to be what it was. Some of you out there may disagree. You might say, I didn't like this race. This isn't what I want to see. I don't know what to say to you. You know, if you feel that way, I'm sorry you feel that way. This is just my opinion. I thought this was fantastic. I think that Atlanta is one of the most underrated racetracks because of the tire wear, because of how the layout and how weathered it is. You see these cars at times 3 and 4 wide into the corner. That's fucking great. You know, I'm not talking about pack racing. I'm talking about, you know, fighting for position off a restart. And then as soon as a lap or two goes by, they started spreading out right away. And then it became about tire management and handling and how they adjusted these race cars. That's what racing is about. It's not about manipulating a package or the bodies of these cars so that they can't get away from each other, or they can't, you know, it's manipulative. I don't like that. This is what racing is. It felt old school. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this race as much as I did. What do you think about, if you saw my prediction video, do you think that I pretty much got, you know, was on point? I think I did a good job. I think that for the most part, most of the stuff I said about this race turned out to be what I thought it would be. And again, you know, I have my fingers crossed. I hope that we see more of this as the year goes on. That would be awesome. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that we're going to get this. You know, these other tracks, they don't wear the tires out as much. They're not laid out the same as Atlanta. So, who knows? I still got my fingers crossed, and I don't have a feeling like I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm just afraid of pack racing like we got at the All-Star racing, at the All-Star race last year. I just don't want that. I want more of what we got today. If we get more of that, I'll be a happy camper, and I think that most fans will like that as well. Okay? So, shout out to JTG Racing. They definitely look more competitive, and I love seeing that. Another thing I wanted to mention, that fucking Kyle Larson paint scheme, that McDonald's car, fucking awesome. I love that paint scheme. The only thing I would have done different, I would have painted the wheels yellow to match the golden arches, the yellow on the car. That would have really made the car pop. And, you know, it's not that big a deal, but I love the paint scheme. I think that's the best looking McDonald's paint scheme I've seen. And I would have liked the wheels to be colored. I think the black wheels just look horrible. All the best paint schemes have colored wheels. Look at all the Penske cars. They all got colored wheels. That PPG car is probably the best paint scheme right now in the garage. I love that paint scheme, and those white wheels pop. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Has nothing to do with the race. I like colored wheels. I don't know why more guys don't color the wheels. I think it really makes the car pop. That being said, I don't know what else to say. Oh, one last, you know, speaking of the broadcast, I think they did a commendable job. I'm not sure they're on level for me with Jeff Burton and like Dale Jr., that combination. Those two guys are really good. I think Jeff Burton's underrated as a commentator, and those guys do a really good job. So I like their broadcast. But I have to say, you know, Mike Joy, Jeff Gordon, and even Waltrip, I think they work well together. And I think that combination between Gordon and Waltrip, you know, you got to have that chemistry. And they have a better chemistry than Waltrip has had with other people in the past. I really like them together. They did a really good job. And another thing, I know a lot of people don't like Waltrip, but I don't know if there's a guy who's better or more funnier just throughout the race. The guy comes up with with the funniest things I've ever heard. There was one point in the race, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Truex. They said, oh, he's got debris on the nose. He goes, yeah, it's called a Chevy Camaro. And he was right up on a Camaro. So, I mean, that's pretty witty, in my opinion, to just come up with that stuff off the top of his head. And there were about 4 or 5 times throughout the race where he said something that I really thought was funny. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. I know that he's that type of personality that you either love him or hate him. You know, so if you don't like him, he's probably annoying. I like him. I like him more now. I guess, you know, his chemistry with Jeff Gordon, I really like. I thought it was good. I hope it continues to be as good. I think overall the Fox presentation and the telecast is a step up from what they've been doing, you know, recently. So I like what I'm seeing. This was a fantastic race, beginning to end, entertaining, and there were different leaders throughout the race. There was lead changes all day long. You would see a guy pass someone, and then 2 laps later, he's taken his position back. That's what they want. They want to see passing. So this is what I want people to realize. Pack racing is bullshit. Pack racing and this idea that, oh, if we keep these cars all bunched together in a pack, that's exciting. No, it's not. Today you saw these cars spread out. You didn't see pack racing at all. But you still saw lots of passing everywhere. From the front all the way to the back. There was racing everywhere. I loved it. And at the end of the day, I want people to walk away understanding why was this race so good. Don't think it was the aero package. Okay? Now, it's fair to say that if they weren't running this particular package, would it have worked out that way? I don't know. But I do know that the main theme of this race was handling and tire wear. And even the broadcasters knew, because they rarely talked about aero until halfway through the race. And when they did, that's not what you could see with your own eyes. They were just talking about it because, yeah, it's part of the mix, but that wasn't the story. It was handling. And one last thing I do want to say, I wasn't even aware that NASCAR did away with that in-car adjustments for the track bar. I'm glad they got rid of it. I was never really a fan of that. And I like the idea that if a guy's car is not handling, you got to hold on to it till you get a chance to pit and do something about it. That's always been part of racing. I was never a fan of, you know, having those adjustments for the driver in the car. And I'm glad they backed away from that. So I didn't even know they did that till I saw this race and they actually mentioned it. So I was happy to see that, and I like that. I like that these drivers have to deal with a bad handling race car. And you can't just turn a dial and adjust the track bar. It gives crew chiefs and the pit crews a lot more involvement. And I think all of it adds up to better racing. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think about the race? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And if you saw my prediction video yesterday, what do you think? Was I pretty, you know, did I nail it? Was I wrong about certain things? Maybe I was wrong about certain things that I talked about and I'm not aware of it. Feel free to point that out. I'm really curious to know what you guys thought. And, you know, basically just the bottom line is this is the type of racing I love. I'm a big fan of, and one last thing I forgot to mention. Atlanta's a great racetrack. If I lived closer, I would love to go to those races. I live really far away from there. But it is sad to see how attendance has dropped, you know, for a long time now at that track. And when you saw what kind of racing that they put on today, I hope it inspires more people to show up to the next race at Atlanta. I would really hate to see that track go because it's a great racetrack. I am personally a fan of mile-and-a-half tracks. I know some people don't like them or they call them cookie cutters. I like mile-and-a-half tracks. I think the problems we've had are related to aerodynamics. And you see what happens when you got a race where it's tire wear and handling that are the main theme, not aero. So that's it. That's all I got to say. I look forward to, you know, what happens in the future. I'm not as confident about, you know, these other races in the future. I don't know what to expect. I really felt strong about this particular race because of the characteristics of Atlanta as a track. And that's why I made that prediction video, because I said, there's something different here, and I talked about it. So what do you guys think? And I got my fingers crossed for the rest of the year, man. I hope we get more of what we saw today. You know, time will tell. So that's it. That's all I got to say. I look forward to your comments.